The SUMMO Sergeant Mark Hale opened his eyes slowly, trying to understand why everything around him was glowing. The light felt soft and warm, like the inside of a crystal. He pushed himself up, confused, and the moment he moved, he heard the clinking of metal chains. Cold cuffs wrapped around his wrists and ankles, holding him to a raised platform. Mark's heart began to race, but he forced himself to stay calm. A soldier never panicked, no matter how strange the situation was. He looked around carefully. This was not the human ship he remembered. He had been fighting near the Quarry Nebula before his shuttle exploded. His memory ended with fire and alarms. Now he was here, in a place that looked like an alien courtroom. Tall crystal pillars rose into the air like frozen lightning. Floating light orbs drifted above rows of alien people watching him silently. Almost all of them were female, with tall, graceful bodies and skin that shimmered in shades of blue and silver. A deep sound echoed across the hall, making every alien stand. Mark straightened automatically, soldier reflex taking over even as his breath tightened. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs, walking with slow, powerful steps. It was a female alien dressed in long, glowing robes, her eyes bright like molten metal. She walked to the center throne and lifted one hand. The entire hall became silent. She spoke perfect English, each word calm and controlled. Human soldier Mark Hale. Welcome to the Court of Life. Mark blinked, unsure if his ears were working correctly. Court of Life, welcome. None of this matched any interrogation he had heard about. I think you are making a mistake, Mark said, trying to keep his voice steady. If this is some kind of trial, I deserve to know the charges. Whispers moved across the audience, soft and excited. The judge lowered her head slightly, as if showing respect. You are not accused of any crime, human, she said. You are summoned. Summoned for what? Mark demanded, tightening his fists inside the cuffs. The judge looked at him with a strange mix of sadness and hope. For survival, she answered, and the hall filled with murmurs again. Mark frowned. He had been through many strange missions, but nothing like this. He scanned the crowd, noticing how all the females watched him with glowing eyes. Not hateful, not hostile, but intense, as if he was something rare and important. The judge tapped a crystal staff against the ground. A hologram appeared above her, showing numbers, symbols, and pictures of alien infants. Our species is dying, she said, her voice softening. For many cycles, almost no males have been born. Our future is falling apart. Mark tried to understand. So what do you want from me? He asked carefully. The judge stepped closer, her robes trailing behind like liquid light. You, human soldier, are compatible, she said. Your biology is strong, stable, and uniquely able to join with ours. Mark's stomach dropped. He knew what she meant, even before she said the next words. The Court of Life orders you to help our newly adult females continue our line. A chill ran through him. He shook his head sharply. No, that's not how humans work, he said. You can't force something like that. The judge's eyes softened. We are not forcing you, she said. This is a sacred role, not a punishment. You will be treated as an honored guest, protected and respected, but our need is real, and you are our hope. Mark looked away, trying to think. He wanted to deny everything, to say he would not be used like breeding livestock, but before he could speak, the judge raised her staff again. Bring them forward, she commanded. A side door opened slowly. Soft glowing mist drifted out, and from inside, 5 young female aliens stepped into the courtroom. They were smaller than the others, their skin brighter and smoother. Their eyes were wide and nervous, but curious too. They walked in a line, stopping a few steps away from Mark. All of them looked at him with a strange mix of hope and fear. These are the newly adult females chosen by our council, the judge said. They are ready for the trial of life. Mark swallowed hard. This was too much, too fast. He didn't know their names, their world, their culture, their expectations. He was a soldier, not a mate chosen by an alien court. I won't do anything without understanding the full truth, he said firmly. Why me? Why now? And what happens if I say no? The judge's face turned serious. If you say no, our species may not survive another century, she said. You are the first compatible human male we have found in 300 years. And you may be the last. The crowd murmured again. Heavier this time, the young females lowered their heads, as if the weight of those words pressed on them too. Mark felt something tighten in his chest. He had seen dying colonies, starving planets, collapsing civilizations. He knew what desperation looked like, but this was different. They were asking him to shape their future, whether he wanted it or not. A loud chime echoed through the crystal hall. Lights dimmed, and the judge lifted her staff for the final announcement. "Human Mark Hale," she said, her voice shaking the air. "Your choice will decide the fate of our people." Mark stared at the shimmering faces watching him. Confusion, fear, pressure, and something else mixed inside him. The young female stepped closer, their eyes glowing softly in the dim light. The courtroom fell silent. Every breath held, every gaze locked on him. Mark stood frozen as the screen of his fate opened in front of him. And in that heavy silence, he realized he had been summoned not for judgment, but for a destiny he had never imagined. Sergeant Mark Hale sat alone in a quiet crystal room, the door sliding shut behind the guards with a soft hum. He had been released from the metal cuffs, but the room itself felt like a cage made of beauty and light. He touched the smooth, glowing wall and found no seams, no windows, no control panels, no weakness. It was clear he could not escape even if he tried. He walked to the center of the room, trying to calm himself. He had survived ambushes, space battles, and crash landings, but none of those things felt as terrifying as the responsibility placed on him now. A soft tone rang, and the door opened again. This time no guards entered. Instead, one of the young female aliens stepped inside. She moved slowly, almost shyly, her silver blue skin catching the light like water. "My name is Lyra," she said in a gentle voice. "The council asked me to speak with you." Mark took a step back automatically, not out of fear, but out of uncertainty. He did not want to send the wrong message. Lyra noticed and paused, lowering her eyes. "We do not wish to harm you," she said. "You are treated as a guest of honor, not a prisoner." Mark gave a short exhale. "If I'm a guest, why don't any doors open when I try to leave?" he asked. Lyra blinked with confusion. "Because the city recognizes you as sacred," she answered simply. "No sacred guest is allowed to walk without an escort. For your safety." That made Mark freeze. Sacred, protected, honored. This wasn't captivity. It was something else, something cultural, maybe spiritual. Lyra moved closer, but kept a respectful distance. "I want to explain something," she said softly. "We did not choose you carelessly." She touched a crystal panel, and a hologram lit up between them. It showed human DNA intertwining with alien DNA, forming stable, glowing patterns. "Our scientists tested ancient samples from the old wars," she said. "Only human males can complete the trial of life." Mark studied the hologram, trying to understand. "So you need a human to save your species," he said quietly. Lyra nodded, her silver eyes soft. "Yes," she answered. "But not just any human. Only one with strong body, strong spirit, and strong heart." Mark gave a bitter laugh. "I just happened to crash in the wrong place at the wrong time," he said. Lyra shook her head gently. "We believe you were guided here," she said. "Nothing in our world happens without meaning." Before Mark could argue, another tone rang. The door opened again, and the judge from the courtroom entered, robes flowing like living light. Behind her stood the other young females, watching Mark with calm, respectful expressions. "Sergeant Hale," the judge said, "it is time you understand the full truth." She tapped her staff on the floor, and the room dimmed. A new hologram appeared, this one darker, showing a large alien city half destroyed. Fires burned, buildings collapsed, bodies lay on the streets. "These were the years of the male plague," the judge said. "Our men died one by one, until only a few remained. Those last males passed away 3 cycles ago." Mark felt a heavy knot form in his chest. No species should face extinction like that. Not quietly, not helplessly. The judge turned to him, her voice gentle but firm. "We do not bring you this duty as a burden," she said. "But as a partnership, you have the right to refuse." Mark raised an eyebrow. "You said refusing might doom your species." He replied. "It might," she admitted softly. "But your freedom matters." The young females stepped forward, each placing a hand on her heart. Mark noticed they were not afraid of him. Instead, they were nervous about what he would decide. They were adults, yes, but they were also facing something like he wasn't the only one struggling with fear. He took a slow breath. "Before I decide anything," he said, "I need answers." The judge nodded. "Ask." Mark pointed at the hologram of burnt cities. "What caused the male plague?" he asked. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. The judge closed her eyes before answering. "We did," she whispered. "Our ancestors created a weapon to enhance female strength. It changed our biology forever. Slowly, males grew weaker until they could no longer survive." Mark stared at her, shocked. "You destroyed your own males," he said, unable to hide the disbelief. The judge nodded once, shame flashing across her face. "It was not intended," she said. "But mistakes have a price." The room stayed quiet for several long breaths. Finally, Mark turned toward the young females. They watched him with wide, hopeful eyes, not demanding, not forcing, just waiting. Lyra stepped forward again. "We do not ask you to be property," she said. "We ask you to be a partner." Mark rubbed his forehead. Overwhelmed, he needed air, space, time. But the door suddenly slid open. A guard rushed inside, eyes wide with alarm. "Hi, Judge," she cried. "Rebels are approaching the sanctuary. They believe bringing a human here is a crime." The judge stiffened. The young females stepped back in fear. Mark felt adrenaline surge through him. His soldier instincts awakened instantly. So this was not just a cultural duty. This was a dangerous choice. A choice that others would kill for. The judge turned to Mark, her eyes intense. "Sergeant Hale," she said, "your choice must be made soon." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a loud explosion shook the ground beneath them. Dust fell from the crystal ceiling as the alarms blared around the entire city. And Mark realized he was no longer just a guest. He was now at the center of a conflict he barely understood. A conflict where his decision could save or doom an entire species. The explosion shook the entire crystal sanctuary, sending cracks of blue light running along the walls like frightened lightning. Sergeant Mark Hale stepped forward without thinking, his soldier instincts taking full control. The young female aliens gasped as dust rained from the ceiling. Lyra stumbled, and Mark grabbed her arm, steadying her before she fell. "What was that?" Mark demanded, turning to the judge. Before she could answer, another boom echoed through the halls, louder than the first. The judge's eyes hardened. "The rebels have breached the outer barrier," she said. "They reject the trial of life." Mark frowned. "Why would they fight their own people over me?" he asked. Lyra swallowed nervously as she replied, "They believe our species should die naturally, instead of being saved by a human." Mark stared at her, stunned by the idea. "They'd rather give up their entire future than accept help," he muttered. The judge nodded slowly. "Some hearts are too proud, too wounded by the old war," she said. "They fear change more than extinction." Suddenly, the room's lights flashed red, and an urgent voice echoed through hidden speakers. "All guards to the sanctuary. Protect the sacred guest." Mark groaned. "I never asked to be sacred," he said under his breath. But he knew he had no choice now. He turned to the young females standing behind him, their faces pale with fear. "Stay close to me," he ordered. "I won't let anything happen to you." The judge watched him carefully. "You speak like a leader," she said softly. "I speak like a soldier," Mark corrected. "But soldiers protect life, not destroy it." The crystal doors burst open, and 3 alien guards rushed inside, armor glowing with defensive shields. "Hi, Judge," one guard said. "The rebels have taken the outer square. They are coming for the human." Mark clenched his jaw. "So I'm the target," he said. "Yes," the guard answered. "They believe if you die, the trial of life dies with you." Before Mark could reply, more explosions shook the ground, and the lights flickered wildly. The judge raised her staff, and her voice thundered through the chamber. "Move the human to the inner vault. We will not let him fall." The guards formed a protective circle around Mark. Lyra and the other young females followed close behind. The group rushed down a crystal hallway, their steps echoing like distant thunder as they ran. Mark caught glimpses of destruction outside the tall window walls. Smoke rose into the sky, fires burned along the streets, and rebel fighters moved like shadows through the smoke. Mark had seen war before, but never a war fought over him. The thought tightened his chest. He didn't want to be the cause of anyone's suffering. When they reached the inner vault, a massive door slid open, glowing with ancient symbols. Inside was a circular room filled with smooth stone and a soft pool of light in the center. The guards formed a blockade outside, while the judge stepped toward Mark. "This is the safest place in our city," she said, "but it may not hold forever." Mark could hear the fighting growing louder outside. He could hear shouts, clashes, blasts of energy weapons. Then the judge spoke again, her voice heavy with meaning. "Sergeant Hale, now you must choose." Mark stared at her, breathing hard. "You want my choice, while rebels are breaking down your doors?" He said. "Yes," she replied calmly, "because choice reveals the truth more clearly." In moments of danger, Lyra stepped closer, her silver eyes shining with fear and hope. "We will respect whatever you decide," she said. "We will not force you." Mark looked at her, then at the others, then at the judge. He thought about everything he had seen, their dying cities, their desperation, their mistakes, their hope. He remembered the young females standing before him, waiting for a future only he could give. He remembered the rebels shouting outside, ready to kill for their beliefs. And he remembered who he was, a soldier trained to protect, not run. Finally he spoke, his voice low but steady. "I won't let your species die," he said. "I'll help you, but on my terms. The judge's eyes widened slightly. What are your terms? She asked. Mark took a deep breath. First, he said, no one is forced into anything. Everything must be with consent. Agreed, the judge said. Second, Mark continued, I'm not a tool, not a prisoner, not a sacred object. I want equal respect. You shall have it, the judge answered. Third, he said, I want peace. No more rebels. No more fighting. If I'm going to help, your people must unite. The judge nodded slowly. That may be difficult, she said, but if anyone can unite us, it may be you. Before Mark could respond, the vault door shook violently as an explosion thundered outside. The guards cried out, and part of the hallway collapsed. Smoke poured in, and through it stepped a group of rebels, armed and furious. There he is, one rebel shouted, the human who will change our blood forever. Mark stepped in front of the young females without hesitation, raising his fists. I'm not going anywhere, he growled. You'll have to get through me first. The rebels rushed forward, but the judge lifted her staff, and light exploded from the ground, forming a barrier between them. She turned toward Mark with a fierce, proud expression. You made your choice, she said. Now we will protect it. As the rebels slammed against the glowing barrier, Mark understood something deep and powerful. He had come to their world by accident, but he stayed by choice, not because of duty alone, but because he saw hope in these people, hope worth fighting for. And as the battle raged around him, Mark Hale stood ready to face whatever came next, not as a prisoner, not as a stranger, but as the protector of a future only he could help create.